Captain Lee Dongmin stared at the star charts on his screen. The research vessel Aurora's Edge drifted quietly through space near the outer rim. They had been studying strange energy readings from this sector for 3 weeks now. His crew of 12 was tired but happy. This was supposed to be a simple science mission. "Captain, we're picking up something strange," said Communications Officer Yoon So-ra from her station. Her voice had a worried edge to it. Lee walked over to her console. "What kind of strange?" "Multiple ships coming out of hyperspace, big ones. And they're not broadcasting Federation codes." Before Lee could respond, the ship shook violently. Red lights flashed across the bridge. Lieutenant Kim Hae-won shouted from the tactical station, "We're under attack. Unknown vessels, at least 6 of them." Lee grabbed his chair as another blast hit them. "Shields up. Return fire. Shields are failing, Captain." Kim's fingers flew over her controls. "These weapons are unlike anything in our database. They're cutting through our defenses like paper." Dr. Park Ji-woo's voice came over the comm from the medical bay. "Captain, we have injured crew members down here. Whatever they're using, it's causing some kind of neural feedback through our systems." The ship shook again, harder this time. Lee could hear metal groaning. "Engineering report." Engineer Choi Min-ho's voice crackled through the static. "Engines are down, Captain. Life support is holding, but barely. We're dead in space." Lee looked around his bridge. His crew was young but experienced. They had been through dangerous situations before. But this felt different. These attackers knew exactly how to disable a Federation ship quickly and efficiently. "Incoming transmission," Yoon reported. "Put it on screen." The main viewer flickered, then showed a face that made Lee's stomach turn. The alien had gray skin stretched tight over sharp bones. Its eyes were completely black, and when it spoke, Lee could see rows of needle-like teeth. "Federation vessel, you are now prisoners of the hegemony. Any resistance will result in immediate death. Prepare to be boarded." The transmission cut off. Lee looked at his crew. They were scared, but they were ready to fight. "Kim, prepare the security teams. We're not going down without a fight." "Yes, sir." Kim's jaw was set in determination. She had been Special Forces before joining the research division. If anyone could organize a defense, it was her. But the fight was over before it began. The aliens used some kind of sleep gas that flooded through the ship's air system. Lee felt his vision blur. The last thing he saw was his crew collapsing one by one. Then everything went black. Lee woke up in a small white room. The walls seemed to glow with their own light. His head felt heavy and his mouth was dry. He tried to move and realized his hands were held by some kind of energy restraints. They didn't hurt, but they were completely solid. "Ah, the leader awakens," the voice came from behind him. Lee turned his head and saw another alien, different from the one on the screen. This one was taller and wore what looked like a white coat. "I am Korth, chief scientist of this facility. You may call me your new reality. Where is my crew?" Lee's voice was rough. "Safe for now. They are in similar accommodations to yours. Whether they remain safe depends entirely on your cooperation." Korth moved around to face Lee. The alien's eyes were a sickly yellow color. "We know you are Captain Lee Dongmin of the Federation research vessel Aurora's Edge. We know your ship carries classified Federation defense codes." Lee said nothing. Korth smiled, which was somehow worse than if he had frowned. "You see, Captain, we have been studying your species for some time. Humans are new to the galactic community. Young, weak. Your files show you feel pain much like other species, but you have no special resistance to it. We expect this interrogation to be quite brief. What do you want?" "Defense codes for the Federation's outer rim stations. Fleet movement schedules. Communication frequencies." Korth picked up a device that looked like a metal rod with wires coming out of it. "We have ways of making you talk. Every species breaks eventually. Most break within hours." Lee studied the alien's face. There was confidence there, but also something else. Curiosity. Like a scientist about to start an experiment. That worried Lee more than threats of torture. "We have extensive data on pain tolerance across the galaxy," Korth continued. "The Centaurians last an average of 2 hours under enhanced questioning. The Vegans typically break in 30 minutes. Even the proud Altarians rarely last more than a day." He held up the device. "This is a neural disruptor. It stimulates pain receptors directly. Very efficient. Very precise." Lee remembered his training. Stay calm, give them nothing useful. But he also remembered something else. Stories his grandfather used to tell about the old wars on Earth. About soldiers who endured things that should have broken them. about the human ability to find strength in the worst situations. "I've never heard of humans being tested by your methods," Lee said carefully. "No. You will be our first human subjects. We are quite excited about the data we will gather." Korth's smile grew wider. "We estimate you will last perhaps an hour longer than most species. Your physical structure suggests slightly higher pain tolerance than average." In another part of the facility, Dr. Park Ji-woo sat in a similar room. She was running through everything she knew about alien biology. If these were hegemony forces, they were known for their interrogation techniques, but they were also known for following very specific procedures that might give her and the crew some advantages. Lieutenant Kim Hae-won was in a third room, doing mental exercises she had learned in Special Forces training. Pain was just a signal her instructors had taught her. The mind could control how that signal was processed. She had a feeling she was going to need every bit of that training soon. Back in his cell, Lee was thinking about Earth, about the climate wars of his childhood, when his family had lived in underground shelters for 2 years, about the Mars plague outbreak where Dr. Park had worked for days without sleep to save lives, about Kim's service in the Arctic War, where soldiers had learned to function in conditions that killed most people. The aliens thought they knew about humans. They had read files and studied biological data, but they had never met a species that had survived ice ages and world wars. They had never encountered beings who could find meaning in suffering itself. "Shall we begin?" Korth asked, raising the neural disruptor. Lee looked directly into the alien's yellow eyes. "Do what you have to do." Korth activated the device. Pain shot through Lee's nervous system like lightning. It was worse than anything he had ever felt. But as the agony washed over him, Lee did something the alien wasn't expecting. He started to count. 1, 2, 3, measuring the intervals, studying the pattern, turning the torture into data he could analyze. Korth frowned. This was not the reaction he was used to seeing. The interrogation of humanity had begun, but the aliens had no idea what they had just started. The pain was incredible. Lee felt like every nerve in his body was on fire, but he kept counting. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi. The neural disruptor sent waves of agony through him every 10 seconds. Korth was watching him carefully, waiting for him to scream or beg. Lee didn't do either. "Interesting," Korth muttered, checking his device. "You should be unconscious by now. We are at level 6 intensity. Most species cannot remain conscious past level 5. Lee gritted his teeth and looked at the alien. "Is that supposed to be impressive?" Korth's yellow eyes narrowed. He turned a dial on the device. "Level 8. This should be quite sufficient." The new wave of pain was beyond description. Lee's vision went white for a moment. His whole body felt like it was being torn apart from the inside. But somewhere in his mind, a voice spoke. It was his grandfather's voice telling him about the siege of Seoul during the climate wars. "Pain is just your body's way of telling you something is wrong," his grandfather had said. "But sometimes you already know something is wrong. Then pain is just noise. You can choose not to listen to noise." Lee focused on that voice. The pain was still there, but it became background noise. He looked at Korth and managed to speak. "Your device seems to have a design flaw. The energy distribution is uneven. You're probably losing 30% efficiency." Korth stared at him. No subject had ever analyzed his equipment during interrogation. Most were screaming by now. He checked his readings again. The device was working perfectly. The human was experiencing level 8 pain and offering technical criticism. "Perhaps the device is malfunctioning," Korth said, more to himself than to Lee. He turned it off and began running diagnostics. Lee used the break to study the room more carefully. The walls were some kind of composite material. The door had no visible handle from the inside. There were 3 small vents near the ceiling. One guard station visible through a small window. He filed away every detail. In another part of the facility, Dr. Park was dealing with a different kind of torture. Her interrogator, a female alien with purple skin, was showing her holographic images of Earth's cities being destroyed. The images were incredibly detailed and realistic. "Look at your home burning," the alien said. "Look at your people dying. This is what will happen if you do not cooperate. Tell us the defense codes and we will spare your world." Dr. Park watched the destruction of Seoul, then New York, then Mumbai. The holograms were technically impressive, but she noticed problems. The explosions were too clean. The debris patterns were wrong. The alien had clearly never seen a real human city destroyed. "These are fake," Park said calmly. "What?" The alien looked shocked. "Your holographic models are based on incomplete data. Seoul doesn't have that many high-rise buildings in the government district, and that's not how human construction debris falls. Also, you have the population density calculations wrong for New York." Park leaned forward. "If you're going to threaten me with destroying my home, at least get the details right." The alien stared at her. Every other species they had tested showed immediate emotional breakdown when shown images of their homeworld being destroyed. This human was giving her technical feedback on her torture methods. In a third room, Lieutenant Kim faced physical torture. Her interrogator was a large alien with 4 arms and gray skin covered in scales. He was using what looked like electric prods to cause pain in her muscles and joints. "Your species' females are known to be physically weaker than males," the alien said, applying electric shock to her shoulder. "You will break quickly." Kim felt the electricity course through her body. It hurt, but she had experienced worse during winter survival training in the Arctic. She had once spent 48 hours in a snow cave with a broken leg, waiting for rescue. This was just electricity. She began timing the shocks. Every 15 seconds. Always for 3 seconds duration. The alien was following a strict protocol. That meant there were limits to what he could do. "You know," Kim said after the 5th shock, "you're applying the current incorrect somehow. The muscle contractions aren't quite right for optimal pain induction. Have you considered adjusting the frequency?" The alien stopped mid-shock. "What did you say?" "I'm saying your technique could use some work. In human military training, we learn about electrical interrogation methods. Yours is maybe a 6 out of 10 for effectiveness." The alien looked confused and angry. He had never had a subject rate his torture techniques. Back in the central monitoring room, Overlord Vextar was watching feeds from all the interrogation rooms. He was the leader of this hegemony facility, and he prided himself on the efficiency of his operation. Most subjects broke within hours. The longest any species had ever lasted was 3 days, and that was a specially trained Altarian warrior. "What is happening in there?" he demanded of his aide, Commander Zephys. "Sir, the humans are not responding as expected. They appear to be analyzing our methods rather than succumbing to them." Vextar watched the screen showing Captain Lee. The human was talking to Korth about energy efficiency and neural disruptors. "Turn up the intensity. Sir, we are already at level 8. Level 10 is considered potentially fatal to most species. These are humans. They are new to space, primitive. Use level 10. Back in his cell, Lee felt the new wave of pain hit him. This time his vision went completely black for several seconds. His heart felt like it was going to explode. But he remembered something Dr. Park had taught him about the human nervous system during their mission training. Humans produced natural painkillers called endorphins when under extreme stress. The body's own morphine. He focused on breathing deeply and letting his body's natural systems work. Slowly, the impossible pain became just very bad pain. "Remarkable," he said to Korth when his vision cleared. "Your neural disruptor is actually triggering endorphin production. The human nervous system is quite adaptive. You might want to consider that in your future research." Korth was staring at his instruments. Level 10 should have killed the human. Instead, the subject was giving him medical advice. "This is impossible. You should be dead." "Sorry to disappoint you." Lee managed a weak smile. "But if it helps, this really does hurt quite a lot." Down the hall, Dr. Park's interrogator was showing her images of her family being tortured. But Park was studying the alien's stress responses instead. The purple skin was turning darker around the eyes. The breathing was becoming irregular. The hands were shaking slightly. "You seem upset," Park observed. "Are you experiencing emotional distress from conducting these interrogations?" "That's actually quite normal. Most beings have natural empathy responses that make torture psychologically difficult. You should probably talk to someone about that." The alien looked horrified. The human was trying to give her therapy during her own torture session. "Lieutenant." Kim was now being subjected to what her interrogator called maximum physical stress. Multiple electric prods were being applied simultaneously. But Kim was using a meditation technique she had learned during Special Forces training. She pictured herself somewhere else, somewhere cold and clean. "You know what would really improve this?" she said during a break between shocks. "Music. Studies show that certain frequencies can amplify pain responses. You're missing a huge opportunity here. Her interrogator was looking at her like she was insane, which, from his perspective, she probably was. In the monitoring room, Commander Zephys was reading status reports. "Sir, we have a problem. 3 of our interrogation specialists have requested medical leave. They are showing signs of severe stress." "What kind of stress?" "Dr. Korth is experiencing what he calls professional inadequacy syndrome. The subject keeps suggesting improvements to his equipment." Interrogator Vash is confused because her psychological torture subject is trying to counsel her through her own emotional problems. And physical specialist Krek says his subject is rating his techniques and offering professional development advice. Vextar stared at the screens. In all his years of running interrogation facilities, he had never seen anything like this. The humans were not just surviving their torture. They were turning it into some kind of learning experience. "How long has it been?" he asked. 18 hours, sir." 18 hours. Most species broke in 2 hours. The record was 72 hours. But these humans showed no signs of breaking at all. If anything, they seemed to be getting more comfortable. "Sir," Zephys said quietly, "what if we have made an error? What if the humans are not as primitive as we believed?" Vextar watched Captain Lee discussing the thermal dynamics of neural disruptors with Korth. He watched Dr. Park giving psychological counseling to her torturer. He watched Lieutenant Kim offering professional feedback on electric shock techniques. For the first time in his career, Overlord Vextar wondered if his facility was equipped to handle what they had captured. The humans were just getting started. It had been 5 days since the capture. Dr. Park sat in her cell during what her interrogators called a rest period. The purple-skinned alien who had told her to call her Vash had stopped showing her fake destruction videos. Instead, Vash kept asking Park about human psychology and why humans could endure things that broke other species. Park was happy to explain. It helped pass the time, and it was clearly bothering her captors more than any resistance would have. "You want to understand human pain tolerance?" Park asked when Vash returned for another session. "It's really quite simple biology. Please explain," Vash said. She had started taking notes during these conversations. Humans evolved as persistence hunters. We would chase prey animals for hours, sometimes days, until they collapsed from exhaustion. Our bodies learned to keep going when other animals would give up. Pain was just another obstacle to overcome. Park stood and began pacing her small cell. "Our brains produce chemicals called endorphins when we're in pain or stress. Other species produce some, but humans produce massive amounts. Enough that it would actually be toxic to most aliens." Vash wrote this down. "What else?" "Our history. Humans survived ice ages that lasted thousands of years, plagues that killed half our population, wars that destroyed entire continents. We learned that suffering was temporary, but survival was everything. We developed culture around the idea that enduring pain could have meaning." "Meaning?" Vash looked confused. "Pain for a purpose. A mother giving birth endures agony to bring life. A soldier endures wounds to protect others. A student endures years of difficulty to gain knowledge. We don't just tolerate pain. We transform it into something useful." Vash stared at her notes. "This is not how other species think. No, probably not. Most species evolved to avoid pain. Humans evolved to use pain as a tool." Down the hall, Engineer Choi Minho was having a similar conversation with his interrogator. They had been using electrical nerve stimulation on him for hours each day. But Choi had discovered something interesting. While the electricity hurt, it also helped him focus. He had started using the sessions to mentally redesign the Aurora's Edge's defensive systems. "You know," he told his interrogator, a tall alien with 6 arms. "This electrical current you're using has given me some great ideas for improving our ship's power distribution systems. The way you're channeling energy through biological conductors is actually quite elegant." His interrogator, who called himself Kel, had stopped trying to make Choi scream. Now he mostly asked technical questions about human engineering. "How do you think of improvements while experiencing pain?" Kel asked. "Pain sharpens focus," Choi explained. "When everything hurts, you have to concentrate on something else. So I concentrate on solving problems. It's like meditation, but with electricity." Meanwhile, Lieutenant Kim had turned her torture sessions into what she thought of as professional development seminars. Her interrogator, Krex, now brought datapads to their sessions so he could take notes on her suggestions. "See? The problem with your current method? Kim explained while being subjected to what Krex called maximum physical stress, is that you're not varying the intensity properly. Constant high-level pain just teaches the subject to adapt. You want to mix high and low intensity in unpredictable patterns. Krex was frantically writing notes. Show me what you mean. Well, I can't actually demonstrate since I'm tied up, but if you think about it from a psychological perspective. Kim launched into a detailed explanation of advanced interrogation techniques she had learned in Special Forces training. The irony was not lost on her. She was teaching her torturer how to torture people more effectively, but she was also buying time and gathering intelligence about the facility's security procedures. In the central monitoring room, Overlord Vextar was having what humans would call a nervous breakdown. He stared at the screens showing his interrogation rooms. In one, his chief scientist was taking notes while his subject explained human biochemistry. In another, his technical specialist was learning about human engineering principles. In the third, his physical torture expert was getting advanced training from his victim. Commander Zephys, Vextar said in a voice that shook slightly, "What is our current intelligence yield from the human prisoners?" Zephys checked his reports. "Sir, we have obtained 0 useful military information. However, we have collected extensive data on human biology, psychology, engineering principles, and torture resistance techniques. They are teaching us." "Yes, sir. The humans appear to be using our interrogation sessions as educational opportunities." Vextar put his head in his hands. The hegemony's entire military strategy was based on the principle that any species could be broken through sufficient application of pain. They had built their reputation on their ability to extract information from anyone. But these humans were not just refusing to break. They were turning torture into a learning experience. "Sir," Zephys continued, "we have another problem. Dr. Korth has requested a transfer to a research facility. He says he wants to study human pain tolerance in a laboratory setting, rather than an interrogation context. Interrogator Vash has submitted a formal request for training in human psychological counseling techniques. And Specialist Krex wants to apply for admission to a human military academy." "What?" "The humans are corrupting our staff, sir. They are turning our interrogators into students." Back in his cell, Captain Lee was having his daily session with Korth, but the dynamics had completely changed. Korth no longer tried to hurt him. Instead, they had what amounted to scientific discussions about pain tolerance and neural response patterns. "I have been thinking about what you said regarding endorphin production," Korth said, checking his instruments. "If humans produce such large quantities during stress, could this be weaponized?" "Weaponized how?" Lee asked. "Could humans function as soldiers even while severely wounded? Could they continue fighting when other species would be incapacitated by injury?" Lee thought about this. "Actually, yes. There are historical records of human soldiers continuing to fight with wounds that should have killed them. During our Mars rebellion, there were cases of humans fighting for hours with injuries that would have stopped other species immediately." Korth was taking notes rapidly. "This explains much about human military effectiveness. Your species does not just tolerate damage. You fight better when damaged. In some ways, yes. Pain and injury can trigger what we call fight or flight responses. Massive adrenaline production, increased strength and speed, reduced fear response. We become temporarily superhuman." "Fascinating and terrifying," Lee smiled. "You're beginning to understand why capturing humans might not have been your best strategic decision." In another part of the facility, Communications Officer Yoon Sora was being subjected to what her interrogators called sensory overload torture. Flashing lights, loud sounds, and conflicting information designed to break down mental resistance. But Yoon had discovered something interesting. The chaotic sensory input was actually helping her understand the facility's communication systems. The aliens used different light frequencies for different types of messages. The sound patterns contained embedded data streams. She was unconsciously learning to read their internal communication network. "Could you increase the blue light frequency?" she asked her interrogator during one session. "I think I'm starting to understand your data transmission protocols, and I'd like to see if I'm right about the encryption methods." Her interrogator, a nervous alien with too many eyes, just stared at her. The human was asking for more torture so she could better understand their technology. By the end of the first week, the entire hegemony facility was in chaos. Half the interrogation staff had requested transfers. The other half had essentially become research assistants to their human subjects. 3 alien interrogators were in the facility's medical bay, being treated for what their doctors called professional identity crisis. Commander Zephys delivered his daily report to Overlord Vextar. Sir, the humans have now provided detailed information about their species' history, biology, psychology, engineering capabilities, and military tactics. However, they have not revealed a single classified military code or strategic secret. How is that possible? They appear to be perfectly willing to share general knowledge about humanity, but completely unwilling to betray specific military secrets. They distinguish between educational information and operational security in ways our previous subjects never have. Vextar looked at the reports. The humans had been incredibly forthcoming about their capabilities. They had explained human evolution, discussed their history of surviving disasters, and demonstrated their psychological resilience. But they had revealed nothing that could actually be used against the Federation. It was as if they wanted their captors to understand exactly how dangerous humans could be. Sir, Zephys said quietly, I believe we may have made a serious error in judgment. What kind of error? We assumed humans were primitive because they are new to space travel. But a species does not develop this level of pain tolerance and psychological resilience in a peaceful environment. These humans survived conditions that would have destroyed most civilizations. Vextar stared at the screens. In one room, Captain Lee was explaining to Korth why humans had developed such efficient healing capabilities. In another, 2 weeks had passed since the capture of the Aurora's Edge crew. The hegemony facility that had once been Overlord Vexitar's pride was now barely functional. 3 more interrogators had requested medical leave. 2 had submitted formal complaints about working conditions. 1 had actually asked to be transferred to a human research facility to continue studying pain tolerance. Commander Zephys found Vexitar in his office, staring at the wall instead of the monitoring screens. Sir, we have received another message from Hegemony Command. They are asking for a status report on the information extraction from the human prisoners. Vextar didn't look up. What shall I tell them? That our prisoners have turned our facility into an educational institution? That our interrogators are now taking notes from their subjects? That we have learned more about humanity than any intelligence agency in the galaxy, but we still don't have a single military code? Perhaps we could tell them about the intelligence we have gathered. The data on human capabilities could be valuable. What data? That humans can survive level 12 neural disruption and offer technical feedback? That they can endure weeks of torture while teaching their torturers better methods? That they view pain as an opportunity for personal growth? Vextar finally looked at Zephys. What use is that information to us? Zephys was quiet for a moment. Sir, perhaps the information is not for us. Perhaps it is for everyone else. Meanwhile, in his cell, Captain Lee was having what had become his daily educational session with Korth. The alien scientist had completely abandoned any pretense of interrogation. Now he simply came to learn about human biology and psychology. I have been thinking about what you said regarding human adaptation, Korth said, settling into his chair. You mentioned that humans survived ice ages. Can you explain how this affected your species' development? Lee was happy to explain. For tens of thousands of years, humans lived in environments that would kill most species. Extreme cold, food scarcity, constant danger. Only the strongest, smartest, and most cooperative humans survived to have children. Natural selection for survival traits. Exactly. But not just physical survival. Humans who could work together, who could endure hardship while maintaining group cohesion, who could find hope in hopeless situations. These traits became part of our basic psychology. Korth took notes. This explains why psychological torture is ineffective on humans. Your species evolved to maintain mental stability under extreme stress. We also developed culture around survival, Lee continued. Stories, songs, and traditions that taught humans how to endure. We made heroes out of people who suffered for others. We created meaning from meaningless suffering. And this is why you are not breaking, Korth. We're not just not breaking. We're doing what humans always do in difficult situations. We're learning. We're adapting. We're finding ways to grow stronger. Korth looked troubled. Captain, I must ask you something. Your ship was conducting research near the Outer Rim. This is far from Federation patrol routes. Why were you really there? Lee smiled. We were studying energy readings that suggested unknown technology. The Federation wanted to know if there were new civilizations in the area that might pose a threat. And what did you find? We found you. And now the Federation knows the hegemony is operating in that sector. They'll send ships to investigate when we don't report in. Korth stood up quickly. You are saying this capture was not random. You led us to you deliberately. Not deliberately, but we knew there was a risk. And we knew that if something happened to us, the Federation would respond. Lee's smile grew wider. The question is, what will they find when they get here? Down the hall, Dr. Park was having a similar conversation with Vash. But Park had been subtly gathering information about the facility's defenses and personnel. Vash, you mentioned that this facility has a staff of 200, Park said casually. That seems like a lot for just interrogation work. We handle subjects from across this sector. Usually we process dozens of prisoners each month. Vash paused. Though since you humans arrived, we have had to reduce our intake. Too many staff are unavailable. Unavailable how? Medical leave. Stress-related conditions. Professional crisis counseling. Some have requested transfers to research positions. Vash looked tired. You humans have had an unexpected effect on our operations. Park nodded sympathetically. It sounds like your people aren't trained to handle subjects who don't respond to traditional methods. Have you considered that the problem might be with the methods, not the subjects? What do you mean? Torture only works if the subject believes it will eventually stop. If you can convince them that cooperation will end their suffering. But if the subject knows that suffering is temporary while principles are permanent, then torture becomes just an endurance test. Vash stared at her. You are saying that humans cannot be broken because you value abstract concepts more than physical comfort. That's part of it. But it's also that we've learned to find strength in suffering itself. Pain tells us we're still alive, still fighting, still human. In the monitoring room, Zephys was reviewing reports that made his situation clear. The facility was in complete disarray. More than half the interrogation staff were unable to work. The humans had been in custody for 2 weeks and showed no signs of psychological deterioration. If anything, they seemed more confident and comfortable than when they had arrived. Sir, he said to Vextar, we need to make a decision. We cannot continue this indefinitely. What are our options? We could release them and admit complete failure to hegemony command, show the galaxy that our interrogation methods are useless. We could eliminate them and lose the most valuable research subjects we have ever encountered. The scientific data on human pain tolerance alone could be worth more than any military intelligence. Then what do we do? Before Vextar could answer, alarms began sounding throughout the facility. Red lights flashed in the monitoring room. Sir, we have multiple contacts dropping out of hyperspace. Federation ships. A full battle group. Vextar felt his stomach drop. How many ships? 12 vessels, sir, including 2 heavy cruisers and a dreadnought. A dreadnought? For a research vessel crew? Vextar stared at the tactical display. Why would the Federation send a dreadnought? Zephys was reading incoming transmissions. Sir, they are broadcasting on all frequencies. They are demanding the immediate release of the Aurora's Edge crew. What else? They are also broadcasting detailed reports of hegemony torture facilities to every civilized world in the galaxy. They have evidence of our operations. Names, locations, methods, victim testimonies. Vextar felt the world crashing down around him. How could they have that information? Sir, the humans have been here for 2 weeks. Their ship was not destroyed. If they had automated systems that could transmit data, the realization hit both aliens at the same time. The humans had not been captured. They had been gathering intelligence. Every day they spent in the facility, every interrogation session, every casual conversation with their captors, had been an opportunity to learn about hegemony operations. Sir, we are receiving a direct communication from the Federation dreadnought. The captain wants to speak with you personally. The main screen flickered, then showed the bridge of a Federation warship. The captain was human, a tall woman with gray hair and cold eyes. I am Admiral Cho Yun-young of the Federation Navy. You are holding 12 Federation citizens in violation of interstellar law. You have exactly 1 hour to release them unharmed, or we will consider this facility a legitimate military target. Vextar found his voice. Admiral, this is a sovereign hegemony installation. You have no authority here. I have the authority of 12 Federation citizens who have been transmitting detailed intelligence about your torture operations for the past 2 weeks. Every civilized world in the galaxy now knows what you do here. Admiral Cho's expression was ice cold. You made a mistake when you decided to test human endurance. You have given us all the evidence we need to shut down every hegemony interrogation facility in the galaxy. What are you talking about? Did you really think that Federation research vessels don't carry automated intelligence gathering systems? Every conversation your staff had with our people has been recorded and transmitted. Every torture session has been documented. Every detail of your operations has been cataloged and broadcast. Vextar felt his legs give out. He collapsed into his chair. They were gathering intelligence the entire time. And now the galaxy knows what happens when someone tries to break human beings. You couldn't break them, but they broke your entire facility just by being themselves. Admiral Cho leaned forward. You have 58 minutes. The transmission ended. Vextar stared at the blank screen. Around him, alarms continued to sound. Status reports flooded in. Federation ships were taking position around the facility. Other alien governments were demanding explanations. News organizations across the galaxy were broadcasting reports about hegemony torture operations. Sir, Zephys said quietly, what are your orders? Vextar looked at the monitoring screens one last time. In his cells, 12 humans sat calmly waiting. They had never looked like prisoners. Now he realized they had never been prisoners. They had been 6 months after what the galaxy now called the Endurance Revelation. Captain Lee Dongmin stood on the bridge of his new ship. The Federation had promoted him to command the Deep Space Endurance Division, a new branch designed to explore regions too dangerous for other species. His crew was still with him. Dr. Park Ji-woo had become the galaxy's leading expert on interspecies pain tolerance. Lieutenant Kim Hae-won was now training Special Forces units from 12 different worlds. They had all volunteered to stay together for the new mission. Captain, Communications Officer Yoon Sora reported from her station. We're receiving a transmission from the Federation Council. Admiral Cho wants to speak with you. The screen flickered, showing Admiral Cho Yoon-young in her office on Earth. Behind her, Lee could see the blue sky and green hills of home. Captain Lee, I wanted to personally update you on the aftermath of your mission, Admiral Cho said. The intelligence you gathered during your captivity has had remarkable results. What kind of results, Admiral? The hegemony has collapsed. Not from military defeat, but from internal breakdown. When their interrogation methods were exposed as completely ineffective against humans, their entire power structure fell apart. Their society was built on the idea that pain could control anyone. Your crew proved that wrong, Lee nodded. What happened to the facility staff? Interesting question. Dr. Korth has applied for Federation citizenship. He wants to establish a research center studying human pain tolerance for medical applications. Several other former hegemony interrogators have requested asylum. They want to study human psychology to help treat torture victims from other species. Dr. Park appeared on screen beside Lee. Admiral, what about the other prisoners the hegemony was holding? All released. More than 3,000 beings from 47 different worlds. The intelligence your crew gathered exposed the locations of every hegemony facility in 3 sectors. We shut them all down within 2 weeks. And the political situation? Lee asked. Completely changed. The Federation has received membership applications from 18 new worlds in the past 6 months. All of them cite human endurance capabilities as a reason they want to join our alliance. They want humans available if they ever face interrogation or torture from hostile forces. Lieutenant Kim joined them on screen. Are we becoming galactic bodyguards? Admiral Cho smiled. Something like that. But more importantly, you've become symbols. The galaxy now understands that humans don't just survive bad situations. We turn them into opportunities for growth. The screen shifted to show a news broadcast from the Galactic News Network. The reporter was a tall, blue-skinned alien with large eyes. In other news, the Federation's new Human Resilience Training Program has received applications from over 200 worlds. The program, developed by former torture victim Lieutenant Kim Hae-won, teaches psychological resistance techniques based on human survival methods. The broadcast showed Kim leading a mixed-species training class. Aliens from dozens of worlds were learning meditation techniques and mental conditioning methods originally developed by humans. The program has been particularly popular among species who face threats from hostile neighbors, the reporter continued. Many governments see human psychological techniques as essential for protecting their people. Admiral Cho returned to the screen. There's more. Dr. Park's research on comparative pain tolerance has revolutionized medical treatment across the galaxy. Her techniques for managing chronic pain are being used in hospitals on over 50 worlds. Park looked pleased. The irony is that studying how humans endure pain has helped us learn how to reduce pain for everyone else. What about our former captors? Lee asked. Overlord Vextar is in Federation custody. He's been surprisingly cooperative. Apparently, the experience of completely failing to break human prisoners caused what your species would call a philosophical crisis. He's helping us locate other hegemony facilities. And Commander Zephys? He's applied to join Federation intelligence. Says he wants to learn how to gather information through cooperation instead of coercion. We're considering his application. The transmission paused while Admiral Cho consulted her notes. Captain, there's something else. The Federation Council wants to discuss expanding the Deep Space Endurance Division. We've identified several dangerous regions of space that other species can't explore safely. Regions with extreme radiation, hostile environments, or dangerous alien civilizations. Lee looked at his crew. They all nodded. We're ready, Admiral. I was hoping you'd say that. Your first official mission launches next week. There's a sector near the galactic rim where several ships have disappeared. High radiation, extreme gravitational effects, and possible hostile contact. Every species that's tried to investigate has turned back or been lost. Sounds like our kind of assignment, Kim said. After the transmission ended, Lee walked to the forward viewport. Space stretched endlessly ahead of them, full of dangers and unknowns, but he wasn't worried. His crew had proven that humans could endure anything the galaxy could throw at them. Behind him, Dr. Park was reviewing medical data from their previous mission. You know, she said, I've been thinking about what we learned at the hegemony facility. What about it? We didn't just prove that humans can endure torture. We proved something more important. We proved that humans can find meaning in any situation. Even torture became a learning experience for us. Engineer Choi Minho looked up from his technical displays. The aliens thought they were breaking us down, but we were building ourselves up. Every session made us stronger. That's the real difference, Park continued. Other species endure pain until it stops. Humans endure pain and transform it into something useful. We turn suffering into strength, fear into courage, despair into hope. Lee nodded, and now the galaxy knows it. Communications Officer Yoon reported new messages coming in. Captain, we're receiving requests from scientific institutions across the galaxy. They want to study human endurance capabilities. Universities want to establish exchange programs. Medical centers want to learn our pain management techniques. And, Lee asked, military academies from 30 different worlds want to establish training partnerships. They want their officers to learn human psychological resistance methods. Lieutenant Kim laughed. A year ago, the galaxy thought humans were primitive newcomers. Now they want to learn how to be like us. Not like us, Lee corrected. They want to learn from us. There's a difference. Dr. Park brought up a holographic display showing the galaxy. Different colored dots marked human colonies, Federation worlds, and allied civilizations. Look at this. Before our capture, humanity had colonies on 12 worlds and was considered a minor species. Now we have formal partnerships with over 60 civilizations. The endurance revelation changed everything, Choi observed. When the galaxy saw that humans couldn't be broken, they realized we might be the key to surviving in a dangerous universe. Lee studied the display. We're not the strongest species. We're not the smartest or the most advanced, but we might be the most durable. Durability matters, Kim said. In a galaxy full of hazards, being able to survive anything is a pretty valuable trait. A new message arrived. This one was marked as personal communication. Lee opened it and smiled. It was from Korth, the former hegemony scientist. Captain Lee, the message began. I wanted to thank you for the educational experience you provided during your stay at our facility. Your lessons on human psychology and pain tolerance have completely changed my understanding of sentient behavior. I am now working with Federation medical teams to develop better treatment for torture survivors. The techniques you taught me about finding meaning in suffering have helped hundreds of patients recover from trauma. I hope we can continue our discussions in a more pleasant setting, perhaps over dinner instead of during interrogation. Your former captor and current student, Korth, Lee shared the message with his crew. They all laughed. "I think that sums up the whole situation," Park said. "We turned our enemies into students. We transformed torture into education. We changed captivity into opportunity. And now?" Lee asked. Kim pointed toward the forward viewport where stars beckoned in the distance. "Now we show the galaxy what humans can really do when we're not tied up in interrogation rooms. We explore places other species can't go. We survive things other species can't survive. We turn the galaxy's most dangerous regions into humanity's greatest adventures." Lee looked at his crew. These remarkable humans who had endured 2 weeks of torture and turned it into the greatest intelligence coup in Federation history. They had not just survived. They had thrived. They had shown the galaxy that humans were not just another species. They were the species that turned every challenge into an opportunity. "Set course for the Galactic Rim," Lee ordered. "Let's go show the universe what human endurance really means." As the ship turned toward unknown space, Lee reflected on how much had changed. 6 months ago, humanity had been struggling for respect in galactic politics. Now they were essential partners for any civilization facing difficult challenges. The galaxy had learned that when things got truly dangerous, when survival seemed impossible, when hope was lost, there was one species that would not just endure, they would find a way to grow stronger. The Federation's newest motto, written in the flowing,